Hello, everyone. All right. So today I finally get to share this information with y'all, this revelation. I get to tell my story, right? So recently, me and my wife got, let's just say, enough financial freedom to have more time freedom. And I want to tell y'all what happened on my side, what I did on my end to shift the economy of our household, which is why I'm calling this specific lecture the economy of L. I've done a lecture in the past on the empire of L. Go back and check that out. Gives you a lot more detail with some of the things that I'm going to bring up because I'm not going to repeat too many things I've already taught before. If you're here live, be sure to leave comments and questions. And if they're appropriate for what I'm talking about, I'll answer them while I'm live. If not, they might turn into another video for another time or possibly another lecture. Before I get started, I'll say that I have a few courses coming up. I have a few books that are already out. You can find them on my website, caveofmystery.org. You can find all that stuff. So let's talk. So, the economy of L. Now, if you check out the lecture that I did on the empire of L, I talk about the imperial structure of God's government, right? So I'll give a brief overview just because that structure plays a huge role in why I'm dealing with this the way that I am. So I gained the revelation years ago that the structure of God, the structure of the heavens, was not or is not religion at all, but instead it is governmental. Then the question then became, okay, what type of government? Well, when you're reading the Bible in English, it says that it's a kingdom. I don't disagree with that. I've just happened to find that the term empire fits it better than the word kingdom. So you're not wrong for calling it the kingdom. I'm just being specific on the type of kingdom. So what's the difference between a kingdom and an empire? Well, a kingdom is ruled by a king and an emperor rules an empire. Other than that, why does it matter and what's the difference? Well, a kingdom or a king is only focused on their individual territory and governing that well. An emperor is focused on expansion. One of the other terms that means the same thing as an emperor, or one of the definitions of an emperor, is king of kings. And that should sound familiar to some of you. An emperor is a king of kings, meaning within an empire, there are multiple kingdoms. Or as Yeshua said, in my father's house, there are many mansions. So that goes to show you that within this larger kingdom, within this empire, there are smaller kingdoms all throughout. And there's layers and layers, levels and levels of this. So in that lecture, I denoted that the actual empire, the Lord over that government, is the Father of heaven, whose name is El. And that his sons function as kings. In fact, the idea that we have around the ecclesia comes from the structure of the divine council, which was called the sons of El, where El and his sons, his children, his descendants would get together or still get together and they decide the fate of reality. And that was the blueprint, the heavenly blueprint behind our natural ecclesia. Now let's deal with this imperial structure a little bit. I promise we're going to talk about money. But let's deal with the imperial structure just a little bit. Like I said, the one who rules over the empire as a whole is the Father in heaven, whose name is El. Notice I did not call him Yahweh. Yahweh is one of the sons of El, and so is Yeshua. When Yeshua comes around, he teaches two things. He teaches on the kingdom, which is new. He didn't come as a religious leader. The religion came hundreds of years after him. He didn't come bearing religion or a message nor a structure of religion. In fact, most of what he did spit right in the face of religion. No, he taught kingdom. He taught government. Everything he did was very much governmental. So not only, right, one of the things that he focused on was the kingdom, the government structure. The other thing was the family, Elohim. he often said things like, I only do what I see my Father do. When you see me, you see the Father. And he specified by saying, my Father that's in heaven. He wasn't talking about Yahweh. That is a current misunderstanding that a lot of other mystics have and a lot of other scholars have, in that they assume that the father of Yeshua was Yahweh. And that's because they recognize Yeshua as Hebrew, which he was, the specific type of Hebrew. He was in a scene. And the father, right, the father of a culture is the God of that culture. So by default, with him talking about Yahweh and dealing with the Israelites, dealing with the Hebrews, dealing with the people in Judea or in Israel, it's assumed that he's talking about Yahweh, who is their God. But Yahweh is no more his father than David is. And the Bible calls him a son of David, but he's not actually the son of David. He's just in the lineage of David because he's a Hebrew. In the same way, that's how ancient cultures and ancient civilizations work. The deity of a region was considered the parent of that region. So they would often refer to their god or goddess as mom or dad. Yeshua was not the son of Yahweh. He just happened to be Hebrew. And Yahweh was the father of the Hebrews. But Yeshua specified, he said, my Father that is in heaven. Well, the Bible shows us that Yahweh wasn't actually in heaven. Tells us that he was traveling around on earth in a box, in a tent, the Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle. He wasn't in our idea of heaven. He ruled over the heavens, that being the sky, but he wasn't actually in heaven. No, he's very much on earth. You even see, right, if Yeshua was supposed to be, because there's a few ways they present it. Like he said, when you see me, you see the Father. You notice that Yeshua's behavior is almost completely different than Yahweh's behavior in the Old Covenant, in the Old Testament. Yahweh brings down fire and has his prophets empowered to where they can call down fire to scorch their enemies and burn up offerings and things. There comes a moment in the New Testament where Yeshua is being heckled and his disciples turn to him and say, hey, they talking trash. You want us to handle them? You know, we'll just call down some fire and scorch that. Just say the word. And he turns to them and he rebukes them. He calls them sons of thunder and says, don't you know what spirit you're of? Well, the spirit that they would be of by trying to call down fire is the spirit of the Old Testament. So if he's rebuking them for functioning in that spirit, he simultaneously cannot be that same spirit. We're going to talk about money, I promise. So I'm drawing a distinction. Yeshua and Yahweh are not father and son. They're brothers. In fact, the story of the Bible is the story of two different brothers, two different sons of El, and you hear reference to it. I believe it's Deuteronomy 32, where it talks about how Elion, which is also what they called him in ancient cultures, in ancient civilizations, divided up the land and gave different regions to his sons. This is also referenced again in Psalm 82, where it talks about us being gods or being gods. This is the sons of Elion or the sons of El. The Bible is a polytheistic book. It does not take away the existence of multiple gods. What it argues is the importance of the other gods, specifically in the Old Covenant, in the Old Testament, from the time period that Yahweh, one brother, one son of El, is in control. He wants you to believe he's the only, and he's the most important, and he's the most powerful. Genesis 1 and 2 actually kind of spit in the face of the idea that there's only one God, because it starts with a plurality. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. That's a mistranslation. The word used there is Elohim. That is plural. Anything in Hebrew that ends with im is plural. So if we were going to put that in English, it's in the beginning, the gods created the heavens and the earth. And then the way that it's worded following in this story gives more credibility to the fact that this is plural, where it says, let us make man in our image, the gods having a conversation about making humanity. So if Genesis starts off with a plurality, where then does the idea of only one come from? That comes from the reign of Yahweh, just one of the brothers. And there's many verses in the Bible that talk about them competing against one another. One such section of scripture is the story of Kings, First and Second Kings, where it talks about the story of Elijah, and he's contending with the prophets of Baal and the prophets of Asherah. Well, those are all Canaanite names. In fact, Yahweh itself is a Canaanite name. It's dealing with the Canaanite pantheon, and it's the actual presentation of that from a Canaanite standpoint is that these are different gods, all a part of a family battling for supremacy over the world. Not saying this one doesn't exist, that one doesn't exist, but just that they all exist. In fact, when Yahweh sent Elijah to handle the generals that were going to another nation to consult a different God, that was the reason why. He said, oh, you're acting as if you don't have a God here that can take care of you. Why are you sneaking over there to consult that God? He didn't say that that God didn't exist. In fact, in his own way, he caught himself in a lie. Because in one verse, it's there are no other gods. Then in that verse is, oh no, y'all have me. Why are you talking to those gods? Which goes to show you that they existed. It's just that in the minds of his people, he did not want to share while he was in control. So the story of the gospel is Yeshua switching us from one government to the next, right? Yeshua and Yahweh, two separate kings within the empire of El. They run their kingdoms different. I told you this is governmental. So if you're going by Old Testament, you're functioning under the laws of Yahweh. This is the way that Yahweh runs his kingdom, which means if you're going to function in that, you have to follow those rules. That was actually the reason why Yeshua came under the lineage and the power of Yahweh, was to give us a way out from that covenant, from that government. His evangelism was presenting us a better government to function by, and even showing us a greater government that we could be connected to. So, right, we're talking about money. I reached a dilemma, because this is something I've known for a few years now, but I reached a dilemma where financially I wasn't seeing the benefits. I wasn't seeing the fruit of this new switch, right? I wasn't seeing the manifestations of this revelation. And I'm going to the Bible, I'm looking at all these different verses that talk about blessings. And I'm like, why isn't this stuff working for me? Right? I grew up a Christian, right? First 19 to 20 years of my life, Christianity. I remember we were tithers at the poorest season of our life. We were tithing and we're still poor. Things like that you start to notice. It's like, okay, if I'm supposed to be blessed when I tithe, where's the blessings? Right? So I reevaluated. I took a moment to step back and really look at the actual blessings in the Bible under this new idea of it being an empire and different kingdoms having different laws. And I started to break things down. I'm like, okay, the Old Testament is pretty much the way in which the old kingdom operates. That's how Yahweh ran his stuff, which means if we're functioning in the new covenant under the way that Yeshua runs his kingdom, I have to put away that old stuff. That's a mixture that's causing me not to produce. Okay, so for example, you have the famous verse in Malachi 3, verses 8 through 12, where it's like, will a man rob God? And you say, wherein have you robbed me? And he says, in tithes and offering, you are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, even his whole nation. And that's off of memory. I grew up hearing that every Sunday at church, because I grew up in a church that believed in tithing. I stopped believing in tithing before I understood what I'm about to share with y'all. The reason why is that I understood that none of us have ever really experienced the actual blessing of tithing. What we experienced was the benefit of giving. Why would I say that? We don't tithe correctly. Tithing was not 10% of your paycheck. It was 10% taken out of the abundance of the people, given to the priests who were taking care of them for the rest of the year, right? It was a little bit different. And what they were given 10% of was their crops. It was their harvest. It was actual resources that they were given. That's what the storehouse in the temple was. It was where they would store all the different resources that they were getting. It wasn't money. The priests didn't need money. They were given their resources direct. So I recognized early that we weren't tithing properly. Therefore, the blessing of giving 10% of my money wasn't applying. Again, when I was giving 10% of my money, because that's what I was taught, I wasn't experiencing a benefit from it. It wasn't working. We stayed poor while we were tithing. We were cheerfully giving, as cheerful as you can be while you're poor, and it just wasn't working. So what I was going to say is that verse about tithing in Malachi is the way in which Yahweh ran his government. He required people to give 10% to their priests, and the priest gave 10% of that directly to him. So when people weren't given the full tithe, they were directly robbing the God who took a tenth of that tenth. So it was the land, it was the property, it was the resources, it was all that stuff. It wasn't money though. Right? So that verse in Malachi is about how Yahweh ran his stuff concerning our finances. Luke 6:38 gives you the way that Yeshua runs his stuff. And this is give and it shall be given unto you. Y'all know that verse. I don't have to repeat it, right? That's New Testament. This is the way Yeshua runs this is the way he's running his kingdom. Give whatever you're giving, expect it back. And there's a lot in that about giving and expecting it back, but I'm trying to stay on topic. But just that fast, we see two different paradigms for how money operates because we're dealing with two separate kingdoms. Yahweh runs his one way, Yeshua runs his another. It's double-minded to try to use the whole Bible. And I'm talking about myself. I was double-minded trying to get Yahweh to bless me while I was serving under Yeshua. I'm not in his kingdom. He doesn't owe me anything. His blessings aren't for me. I'm in a different government. It's like trying to get government assistance in a country that you don't live in. So it's not that it wasn't supposed to work. It's that I was dealing with the wrong God. We're in the new covenant. So I had to break free of double-mindedness. Now, going back to what I was saying earlier, Yeshua preached about his father. His father's name is El. That's the emperor of the heavens. So I started to build a relationship. Forget the money. Let's talk about the relationship. I started to build a relationship with the actual Father in heaven that Yeshua was trying to introduce us to. So I'm talking and I'm building relationship. We're spending time together off and on, right? Let's say I'm inconsistent with how much time I'm spending with the Father because the Bible doesn't talk about the Father. I don't know how to engage the Father. I'm doing my best. I'm meeting with him. I'm spending time. I'm in his presence. We're having a few interactions here and there, but I can tell that we're not actually engaging. Because like I said, the Bible's talking about Yahweh and Yeshua, two of his kids. It's not really showing you anything about him. So let's just say around 2022, 2023, maybe 2021, I'm actually having encounters with the Father. Going into the heavens, meeting with the Father. The Father is manifesting on earth. We're sitting together. We're talking, right? This is why, right? Again, going to the idea that that Yahweh and El or that Yeshua's father is not El, is that Yeshua says something. He said, or they mention this later on in the New Testament. It's like, how can you do this with a God that you've never seen, that no one has ever seen? Well, the Old Testament has experiences and it has records of people meeting with Yahweh. Moses did it. Exodus 33:11 talks about how he had a face-to-face relationship with his God. You have Israel has his name changed after a face-to-face encounter with his God. They're actually seeing this God. Isaiah, in the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord, he was high and lifted up, his train filled. He's looking at his God. So we can't say that it's a God that no one's ever seen, while simultaneously having several verses about people seeing this God, unless he's talking about somebody else. So I had to pick a different father. Yahweh wasn't a good enough father for me. I had to go in and start building relationship with the father that Yeshua was trying to get us to know. Okay. So it was late October of last year. I'm jumping, right? Recent shifts, because I'm telling you how me and my household just got financially free within the last month. I'm going to walk you through what I did on my side, which changed that. So it was, let's just say, October 28th of last year. I have an experience where I'm in my prayer closet, I'm in my office, and I'm meeting with the Father, and I get in his presence, and he appears before me, and he begins to pour out this golden fire over me. That was a manifestation of his glory. This golden fire came out of his hands, covered my body, and to it, he started to tell me some of the things that he was actually imparting in that moment. So two major keys just to take away from that is that, oh yeah, there's health and wealth in the glory. So if you learn how to access the Father's glory, you get that. Now that was October of last year, right? Just fresh interaction. I'm like, okay, health and wealth is in the glory. I don't necessarily master this stuff the moment they tell me stuff. I sit with it, I learn it, I practice it, I bear some fruit in it, I get experience, and then y'all find out about this stuff. I'm not very trigger happy when it comes to teaching, where I just want to share all my stuff with y'all. Y'all find out less than 1% of what I actually do. So October 31st through November 3rd, me and my wife go to a business conference in Florida. It was called Faith Over Fear. And that pretty much the idea behind it, of why I even wanted to go, is that I'm sitting in a room with a bunch of millionaires telling you how they got it. And I'm sitting there, not a millionaire yet, saying, hey, they got something I don't. I'm willing to go and sit under some people that got something I don't have. Right? There's impartation just in sitting under people who are walking in more than you. Easy, right? So we go, and on one of these days, I don't remember which one, they had us do an exercise where pretty much you were to ask God, right? They don't know the stuff I know about God and God. They don't know none of that. So their exercise was just to ask God what your next step should be to move forward, right? And I had a short experience with the Father in there where it was a thin encounter, as in it wasn't too dense of an encounter, but it was real nonetheless, as in the Father didn't fully manifest himself in the room that we were in. Just enough for me to have this experience. And he appeared in front of me. And again, he had me put my hands out, and this golden fire trickled off of his hands and dipped over mine. And I was like, what are you blessing me for? What do you want me to do with this? And he said, write more books. He's like, as you write more books, they're going to carry this glory on them, and it's going to increase and increase. So I'm like, he's like, what I want you to do is start brainstorming different books, allow this inspiration to kind of work its way through you. and you'll have a bunch of new book ideas. So I got a bunch of book ideas in one moment, and I started working on those books around that time. So even then, I was talking to him. I was like, I don't have money to publish these books. I'm like, books are expensive to publish. And he was like, don't worry about that. Just work on the books. Like I said, I'm like, all right, all right. So that's October, November, that whole span. Let's jump cut to much more recent, because that didn't shift our economy then. So around, let's just say May of this year, just a few months ago, I really started taking my relationship with the Father serious. I'm like, okay, I know this is the real Father. I know that there's greater blessings, because guess what? If this is the things, and I'm talking about Yeshua and Yahweh, and I'm like, if this is the things that they can offer me as kings, and that's powerful, right? How much more could the actual Emperor of the heavens offer me? I'm like, there is a difference between a kingdom level of work, a kingdom level of magnitude, a kingdom level of finance, a kingdom level of power. You know, I'm thinking like this. I'm an outside the box thinker. I'm like, there has to be more if I start dealing with the emperor instead of the kings. So I started spending more time getting to know the Father. Around this time, the Father appeared in my room. He came pick me up, right? And he took me to, let's just say, one of his palaces. And I remember when we got to this realm, there was a bunch of saints outside sitting in, let's just say, like a courtyard or a field, and they were having intense conversations with each other, sharing revelation. But we passed right past all of them. We went into his palace, and he sat down in front of me. And when he sat down, I began to really focus on the room that we were in. That there was gold and riches and all types of stuff all over the floor, to the point where I couldn't see an end of it. Completely infinite. And I'm seeing riches, I'm seeing power, like all of this is just in the floor. He didn't really have decorations up, it's all on the floor. So I'm looking around, and I'm gonna wrap that story up because that's not the important story. I kept getting glimpses of that stayed in my head. I'm like, his floor is made of this infinite wealth. And then I started to think about Yeshua, right? He said, I only do what I see my Father do. I'm like, there's a coding, there's a impartation in watching them work. I'm like, how does he actually work? So I started going back and sitting with the Father and just observing him do nothing. I'm like, he's not doing anything. He's just sitting here on his throne, surrounded by all this stuff. But I'm not giving up. I'm looking and I'm paying more attention. I'm like, what's really going on? I'm like, let me observe the consciousness that he's operating from. It's rest. He's beyond desires. He's living in such a state of, I have this already and I don't need anything, that he is motionless. He doesn't need to act anymore because of the level of rest that he's in. And that reminded me, I'm like, okay, the emperor functions through rest. I've been teaching kings function through joy. I'm like, but it's rest, that's the imperial thing. So I'm spending more time, I'm focusing on this. So then I start practicing his demeanor. So I have to work on my mindset, because I'll tell y'all this. Last year, but this year specifically, right? Paycheck to paycheck, barely paying all the bills each month. Right? Because my ministry is not set up like other ministries. I'm not taking in tithes and offering every week. Right? I'm not challenging people to give. I don't believe in those shenanigans. I don't do that stuff. Right? So I was only getting as much as I was going out, and I was working full time. Me and my wife were working full time. She had a business. I have businesses on the side, and whatever those were producing is what we had. So I start practicing the mentality that I'm seeing the Father operate out of. I'm like, okay, I know that you have to get into a consciousness before your surroundings change. I know this. Look, I listen to Neville Goddard and all that. So I'm like, I understand how this works. So I started practicing the consciousness of the Father. I'm like, he's living in rest. He's above the need. So let me get above the need. And as I started doing that, and this is May, right? I started to notice random money just started popping up. All of a sudden, somebody want to order a whole bunch of oil from my shop. I make anointing oil. That's one of the things that I do. People are ordering books off my shop. I'm like, and if you notice, I don't do advertisements often at all. Right? Maybe once every few months, I'll remind y'all that I have businesses and stuff, because I'm not even trying to build it off of a whole lot of hard work in that capacity. I'm like, no, I'm a mystic. The spirit should be doing all this work. So I'm focusing on that. I'm like, okay, but I'm noticing this whole time I've been engaging the Father in this capacity, just by changing my consciousness, I'm noticing more and more money finding its way to my bank accounts. I'm like, okay, I'm grateful for this. I still don't know what I'm doing yet. So then I remembered, I'm like, okay, Yeshua has a way that he likes to be worked with, which is different from the way that Yahweh likes for us to work with him if we're working with him. I've never asked the Father how he likes to be interacted with. So I'm like, okay. This just got easy, because now I know if I go ask the Father, he's going to tell me how to interact with him, and then I could change the way that I operate. So in a meeting with the Father, I go and I sit with him in the heavens and I ask him, I'm like, how do you want me to interact with you? And how do I access your wealth? I know begging is wrong, right? I learned that from Yeshua. You don't beg. You're a son. Sons don't beg. I'm like, but not begging has me broke. So what do I need to do? Right? And the Father very simply just said, whatever you see, just thank me for it. He says, as you can see, I'm above all of this stuff. I don't need any of this. My riches fund kingdom work. So when you're functioning and you're working out your kingdom function, your kingdom identity, I fund y'all. Y'all don't fund me. I don't want anything from y'all because I don't need anything from y'all. Y'all have need from me. I am your source. That's actually what Father means. Father means source. So he's like, I don't need anything from y'all. I fund your projects. So all you need to do is thank me for the things that you see. Not just thank in general, oh, I thank you for this, I thank you for that, I thank you for this. But he's like, you come here, you get familiar with what you see around me, and then you thank me for it, and it'll start to pop up around you. So this is late May, early June, right? I'm asking the Father. I'm like, I'm thanking the Father, right? I had to change the way I engaged him, because I was asking for stuff before and it wasn't working. And I'm just trying to manifest some things, and some of that ain't working. So I'm like, all right. So I'm thanking him for stuff, and it's popping up the next day, the same day. I'm like, oh my goodness, that's all I had to do. So I'm like, I thank you for giving us enough money that we don't have to work as hard as we've been working, and we can have a few months off to really just focus on kingdom work. I thank you for funding our lives so that we can give our time to kingdom work and not have to spend all our time, right, at work, because me and my wife were both working full time. So I'm like, I'm just thanking him for this stuff, right? And money after money after money just showing up. I'm like, goodness, this is a lot. June 8th, 2 days before my birthday, I get so let me go back. June 7th, June 7th, I'm having a conversation with the Father. I'm thanking him for stuff again. My car had been messing up. My car needed work. I'm like, I think I need some new tires. My car started doing this thing where it thought it was on a hill and would start messing up while I'm driving. It would like cut traction control on and start messing with the way that it was a lot going on with my car. My car needed to go to the shop. So I had just seen over the past, let's just say week and a half, that me asking the Father for stuff that I know he has, it manifests. I'm like, he got the money to fix my car and fix the situation I'm in. So I ask him, I'm like, this is June 7th. I'm like, could you fix my car up, fix this situation with my car? I think is how I worded it. I'm like, either give me the money to get it fixed or whatever you want to do about that, but fix this vehicle money situation, right? I know you got it. So I thank him for that. I'm like, thank you for fixing my car situation. The next day, or actually, it's that night, Pastor Daniel Thornis, me and him work together. He asked me to speak for him randomly, right? Turns out he ended up sick. He needed a fill-in. So I go up there. I'm ministering that July 8th, right? That Sunday. I'm ministering for him. I'm teaching for him. I leave. Now, I noticed something. Just in general, just this thought crossed my mind. I'm like, it seems that something weird always happens with my car when I'm leaving here. But I'm not thinking much of it. I'm like, I make it all the way pretty much. I'm down the street from my house pretty much. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to grab me something to eat and then I'm going to go home. Well, as I'm going down the street, I'm a ways away. The light in front of me turns green. I'm a ways away. I'm driving the speed limit. A car turns in front of me and I hit the back of a car. It was ruled that it wasn't my fault because he ran the light. I drove off, got my food, went home. My wife came home shortly after, told me my tire was popped. I'm like, well, now I can't drive my car. I was a delivery driver for the last several months, which meant I don't make money if I don't go drive and make the money. But in my head, I'm going, I just asked the Father to fix this, so I think I'm gonna be good. I just asked him yesterday to fix my car situation, and now it's total. So now I just got in an accident. So I'm like, either he's gonna give me my car back and I get it fixed for free, or he's gonna total my car and I get all that money back. But whichever way, I'm fine with it because I'm like, my car is almost paid off, to be honest. So I'm sitting. So some time goes by. It takes them a while to evaluate it. Eventually, my car is totaled. My car officially got totaled like 2 weeks ago. So for let's just say a month straight, about a month straight, I could not go to work. My main source of income was being a delivery driver. I made more money sitting at home, praying for money and thanking the Father for money than I did when I was out working hard for it every day. Hundreds and hundreds and thousands just kept showing up. And again, I never told anybody, one, that we were struggling financially, nor did I tell anyone that I got in an accident and lost my car. I didn't tell anybody anything because I knew out of sympathy, if I shared that, enough people like me that people would give me something if I said something about it. I was like, no, I'm challenging the Father. The Father says I just need to ask him. I just need to thank him and his mind. So I went about it that way. I'm like, all right, I thank you for more money. I thank you that not only are the bills going to get paid, but we're going to have so much money in the overflow. We're going to have months and months worth of money so that neither one of us have to work because my wife was still working. I couldn't work, so I was at home. Like I said, they popped my tire, so I couldn't drive it. And I'm like, I'm not gonna pay to get my car towed so I can get a tire and try to drive it. I'm not doing all of that. No, I'm just gonna wait this out. The Father said He's gonna take care. I'm trusting the Father to take care. So again, I went from working full time, right? Me and my wife working full time, to both of us being able to sit at home now and work on the stuff that we actually have a spirit leading on, right? We got ourselves thanking the Father for what I saw, got us the money, which gave us the financial freedom for us to then have time freedom to do what we actually were called to do. So that's why y'all see me on live a whole lot more, even though I don't like doing this. So look, I'm telling y'all now, y'all got 2, maybe 3 more lives out of me coming up. But that's why I all of a sudden had more time freedom. This is how I was able to publish another book. This is how I was able to get some lectures and some courses and stuff together for y'all. It's because I was not anymore working full time. The Father gave me the exact amount of money I needed to have the time freedom to really be a mystic and really press into purpose. A parallel story that was happening is that over the course of 9 months, my wife has been trying to start a business that would shift us perfectly out of the economy that we were in. The problem with it is that it needed a large investment to start, and we were paycheck to paycheck and didn't have it. We tried to get loans. They told us we didn't make enough to get the loans. We didn't have any collateral, so we couldn't get a loan. We tried all of that. There was a point where, and this person missed out. Sorry, buddy. This person missed out. There was someone, right? We asked the Father. We were like, who are we supposed to ask? Like, I asked on my own, right? Because I let my wife work her own sonship journey out. I asked the Father, I'm like, who is she supposed to get the money from? And he says, this person. I'm not going to say that person's name because I'm not trying to embarrass nobody, but said this person's name. I'm like, okay. And I'm like, are you sure? Because they kind of hard to work with, if I'm being honest. I'm like, I love them, but they hard to work with. And the Father said, that's who she's supposed to get the money from. And he even told me, he was like, I want to bless them through y'all, and this is a way for me to do it. I'm like, okay. I don't tell my wife I have that conversation. I let her work it out, right? She eventually asks the Father who she's supposed to get the money from. The Father tells her the same person. And she goes and asks this person. This person started to ego trip and all types of stuff. Made our relationship awkward. Started disrespecting my wife, started being rude, started being extra, started taking shots at me and other people that they had problems with because they were under the impression that we wanted something from them. And it's not that we wanted a goddamn thing. It was that the Father said to ask you for this. And the whole time this is happening, I'm like, I don't want to get involved yet because my anger might mess this up. So I'm like, let me chill. So eventually the person finally says no. It's like, good. No's ain't a bad word. I'm like, all right, Father, you told us to go to this person. I told you they hard to work with. And they was hard to work with. He's like, I did that for a reason. I was like, they needed a lot more money than they got. They got some things coming up. And truth be told, they're about to come off that anyway. It's just that this would have been a way for them to get it back plus more just through the connection. And I'm like, okay. So I was like, so when's the money supposed to come? Like, how's that supposed to happen? We went to this person, went to this, like, when the money coming for my wife to be able to start her business that you told her to start? And the Father said, it's been a slight delay, but it's still coming. It won't be too much longer. Well, in the period where I was engaging the Father and thanking him for all this stuff, I'm like, oh yeah, and give my wife, thank you for the money for my wife to start her business too. Oh yeah, that money hit the same time. So the thousands of dollars we needed to start that business, we got when we didn't have the thousands to pay rent at first. I got a better Father. Yahweh wasn't a good enough dad for me. I went to his dad, and his dad take good care of us. So that is what happened on my end concerning how me and my wife got financially free enough to actually start doing what's in our purpose, what's in our assignment. I started thanking the Father for stuff, literally. And like, it was almost a joke. I'm like, I'm scared to go back to work. I've been making more money sitting at home praying for money than I was when I was out working hard for it. I'm like, I think I just need to stay at home and pray for this money. And that's really what I've been doing. And more money has continued to come. We haven't lacked anything. It's like we spend a lot of money and then double that money shows up. I'm like, I can't get rid of the money now. All I did was change the way that I was engaging the Father, right? I'm just like, begging ain't gonna work. That's Yahweh stuff. Yeshua teaches it one way. I'm like, that's great. But let me go beyond both of them and talk to their dad, because he has a way of operation and he funds. So how would I say to get free financially? One, understand your imperial identity. Understand who you are as a king in the heavens. Find out what that operation is, what your dominion is, what your jurisdiction is. Begin to work from your identity, and then thank the Father for the resources to do that kingdom work. I'm telling you, he has more than what you can imagine. He can't run out. So at the same time, you need to build a relationship with the Father. I'm sorry, this is going to mess the gospel industry up. This is going to mess worship leaders up. Your Father's name isn't Yahweh. Yahweh, somebody else. Talked about that earlier. Your Father's name is El. Your Father's name is Anu. Different cultures call the Father different names. The Hindus call him Brahma. That's why Abraham was named Abram. He was named after Brahma. Different story, right? But you start to build a relationship with the Father. You start to look around and see what's around the Father. You then just thank him for what you're able to see, and it just pops up. That's not hard, is it? Build a relationship with the Father. Go visit him. Look around his place and see stuff you like and just say thank you. That's it. At the same time, right? Practice living from rest. That was the thing that I noticed about the Father. He was so far beyond the need of anything that he had everything. You notice that when you're chasing stuff, it runs from you. You chase money, money money is outrunning everybody because so many people are chasing it. What I learned from the Father is that when you decide you don't you notice that in general, is that once the desire for a thing ends is when it shows up? Y'all notice that? Y'all pray for something, you really want something, you give up, and then now it pops up when you don't want it anymore. That's because you finally entered into a state of rest about it. That's the state that the Father lives from. He's beyond need to the point where he has everything, and he's the source of everything. He's able to fund everything and give to everything because he's without need. He doesn't have any needs. All of his riches, even the fact that he's funding other projects, is proof that he doesn't have any needs. He's not using any of it. He's giving it all away. And truth be told, he can't give it all away. He has more. He has more than enough. I'm just scratching the surface. It's only July. This transition happened last month. We only a few days into living like this. I got thousands of dollars sitting at home praying for the money. I didn't scam nobody. I didn't start taking up offerings. I didn't start teaching on y'all need to tithe. Hey, y'all need to give $1,000 and it'll break the yoke of poverty. I didn't do none of that to y'all because that's not how I operate. I'm like, Father, you're going to have to show me how this empire stuff works so that I could teach other people. I didn't start making y'all pay for prophecies. In fact, I started doing more stuff for free because I was in anticipation of the Father fulfilling the promise that he gave me. Ooh, I saw a good question. He said, "Do you think that we will see the stuff that we need or just random stuff, but still helpful for the things we need?" You'll see what you see. That's why I was super vague about what I actually saw. I was like, yeah, I saw riches, I saw glory. There's some specifics I saw, but I don't want to spoil that for y'all because y'all have the same access to the heavens as I do. I'm not special in that regard. So when y'all go and y'all sit with the Father, y'all go in the heavens and see him, and y'all actually look around his palace and y'all are looking around his specific throne room. I'm like, oh, you have all of this here. So if I need any of this, I just say thank you and it pops up. Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, so this is my story of financial freedom. Because now that my wife has her new business, we're actually on course to millions. Because I learned, like, I heard a bunch of things that I never wanted to get in agreement with. I heard things like, in order to make a lot of money, you have to sacrifice being able to talk about the things you care about, right? They're like, don't be political, that runs people off. I'm like, well, if I have to pretend I don't see evil in the world to make money, I don't want it. Y'all can't buy me. I've been that way. I'm like, if you can buy me to shut up and not speak against evil, I don't want that money. That ain't good enough. I'm like, no, the Father has to be good. In fact, right, a part of the story I left out. This is what actually got me to think like this, right? It was a month ago, maybe two. There was a situation where this racist lady called this black kid the N-word at the park, and in one day they raised $500,000 for her. That made me so mad. I was like, really? All she did was be racist, and she got $500,000 for that. And what came to mind first was the wealth of the wealth of the wicked is laid up. I'm like, well, this is definitely an example of wicked wealth. So I started thinking of ways that I, of my own ideas, could actually access that wealth. And the Father said, right, he heard me thinking and he hopped in my thoughts. I went having a conversation with him. I was plotting. And he was like, you can have the wealth of the wicked, or you can have the wealth of my righteousness. And I'm like, well, I know what that means. Whenever you give me a this or that, it's the new thing. So fine, I'll give up on the wealth of the wickedness, but of the wealth of the wicked. But you're gonna have to show me how to access this righteous wealth. Because I was frustrated. I'm like, it seems that the wicked are prospering. It looks like the devil takes better care of his people than you. I had a lot to say that day. I'm like, $500,000, and all she had to do was be racist. Here I am taking people into the heavens. I'm healing for free. I'm prophesying for free. I'm raising the dead for free. I'm casting out demons for free. I'm teaching for free. I'm doing all this stuff for the love of the game. And I'm going paycheck to paycheck. And all she had to do was be racist and the money popped up. That ain't right. So that's what got me in the thought process of actually engaging the Father. I'm like, you said you got more money, so I'm gonna see how to get this money from you. You got to prove it to me. I was irritated. So I'm still sticking with my brand. I'm not a complicated mystic. I don't believe in giving you 90 exercises that are super complicated, and if you mess up, you got to start. That's not the way I operate. I teach simple stuff, and that's how simple it was. I just started focusing on my relationship with specifically the Father, dealing with him as El, refusing to go back in the older paradigms. And guess what? Some of this stuff you're going to have to experience. My message, this sermon, this lecture might not get it for you. It's not enough, right? Some of this might get lost in translation. At the very least, go meet with the Father yourself. Learn him. Again, he's not Yahweh. There are no Bible verses that talk about the way the Father actually is. The Bible doesn't talk about our actual Father. It talks about two of his kids, Yeshua and Yahweh. So let's see. Someone says, what are your thoughts on the wealth transfer? This is the wealth transfer. We already have the funding. As long as we get in alignment with our kingdom identity and start doing our kingdom work, the Father just funds us. All we got to do is say thank you and the money pops up. I like that. My wife said the truth of wealth is to be the voice you were created to be. It's that easy. You be who you were meant to be and let the Father fund that project. He's the one that commissioned the project. He's the one that wrote on our scroll in eternity and decided what we were meant to do in the earth. He's just paying for you to do what he wants you to do anyway. He's funding the project, because that's how I talk to them. I'm like, okay, you told me to go do that. I'll do it. You need to pay for it. If I'm obeying you, you need to make sure the means show up. I'm like, I don't have it, but I'll say yes. I'll do it. You need to get the money, though. So I was told things like, in order to move in wealth, you got to be heartless. You can't look out for nobody. I'm like, no, I don't want to be selfish. I actually like taking care of people. I like seeing people's lives change. I want to be able to pour into my communities. I want to be able to, be a lot more charitable than I can. I hate passing homeless people and I don't have the money to give them. I'm like, look, if I give you money, we're going to be sitting here together tomorrow. I ain't like having that experience. I'm like, no, I want to be able to actually take care of my region. It's hard to make earth look like heaven when you broke, and ain't nobody broke in heaven. Right? Even a challenge that Yeshua gave me in the middle of this. I'm just sharing random keys. One of them will get you, right? I was thinking about how I stepped out of needing to be sick. And mind you, my healer class is coming up this fall for those who want to take that. But I was thinking about how I just decided that I'd never be sick again, and I stopped being sick. Yeshua jumped in and he was like, you can decide to stop being poor too. I was like, okay, great. Just hit me right between my eyebrows, right? I'm like, okay, in the same way that I said I'll never be sick again, let me say I'll never be broke again. I'm like, okay, fine. All of that happened within the same month. Let's see. You said that in another video that Michael was now in charge of the earth. I may be mistaken. Are we to try to engage him too? Not in this capacity. Are there any scriptures about El or Anu? Very few, and none of them deal with his character or how he operates. A lot of them, in reality, are verses that are now about Yahweh, where they just swap the names. I was inspired years ago by Apostle Matthew Stevenson. He was given a message, and I go listen to this message every now and then because it's still great. The name of the message, if y'all want to find it on YouTube, is called "Is Saul Among the Prophets?" And in this message, he said something that stuck with me. He was like, the gospel is supposed to be good news, right? He's like, if I'm homeless and I'm poor and you come up to me talking about the streets of heaven are made of gold, I will shoot you, because that has nothing to do with the situation that I'm in right now. The good news to the poor is that you don't have to be poor. The good news to the sick is that you don't have to be. right? This is the gospel in operation. I don't have to con nobody out of no money. I don't have to lie to fit in. I don't have to bite my tongue. I get to tell the truth and still make money. I get to speak against y'all president and still make money. I get to do all the things, right? I get to speak against racism and still make money. That's the stuff they say you can't do. I get to take care of people, help people out, and still make money. I was giving other people money when I didn't have it because I knew the Father was about to give me more. I was like, I can't act like, I'm like, nope, can't think and lack like that. I know the Father is sending me this money so they can have it. I'll have more than enough pretty soon. Either today or tomorrow, this money should be coming in. It's literally like waiting on a paycheck, is how I can describe it. I like that. Religion keeps you poor. It did. The more religious I was back in the day, the poorer I was. I was at my poorest. I remember I was so poor. I was in middle school, and I remember we were living paycheck to paycheck. My mama, she was buying groceries, and we wasn't going out to eat. We wasn't getting nothing. Wasn't no trips to Toys R Us, nothing. I'm like, and we went a few months like that. And I told her one day, I was like, I'm tired of living like this. This is rough. And we still laugh about it now. Even my parents benefited from this recent change, right? As I was working through the early stages of just working with the Father, I was like, all right. My dad, I'm like, me and my dad have had a history, but we on good terms these days. My earthly father, I'm like, my father has a project that he's been trying to do. There's a school he's been trying to start. Give him the money for it. My father got the money for it. It's like 90,000 or something like that. Money that you couldn't fundraise for. I'm like, there we go. Right? I was like, thank you for helping my dad. Thank you for helping my mom out. Both of them got random money. I'm like, oh, I get to give money away because it ain't mine. This is money and he ain't running out. The problem that most of us were having isn't that we didn't have a lot of these words together, is that we were trying to get it from the wrong person. Y'all were trying to get this stuff from Yahweh, or y'all were trying to squeeze it out of Yeshua. Yeshua never told you to ask him for no money. Yahweh had a different operation. Yeshua, in his own way, said, go ask my daddy. I like this. Said I was set free from institutional slavery June, Friday the 13th. Yep, couldn't make that up. A lot of people getting their financial freedom, right? Because that's how it feels when you working and you hate what you're doing. You hate how you have to do in order to work, and you surviving. I got tired of surviving. I know survival, like living in a state of survival, is not healthy for us. I grew up poor. I never wanted to experience that stuff again. I got comfortable, but then once you start doing kingdom work and it's time to fund projects, like an example of this, originally, my conference that I did, right? And y'all can see in the footage, even at my conference, I didn't even take an offering up. I didn't even take a special offering. I was like, okay, let's give. I'm past the, but I didn't even do that to y'all, right? And the whole conference, all 4 hours of it is on camera. I didn't take up an offering. I had to pay in the middle of me not being able to work. I paid for that building, which was over $1,000 for us to use that building for that day. That was money I didn't have, but the money showed up anyway. And I had more money on the flip side of paying for that than I did. I couldn't have worked for that much money. That's what I'm trying to say. I stopped working hard and I started letting my mysticism work for me. I like this. Don't silence your voice to get money. Your voice will bring your provision that's meant for you. Absolutely. I made up my mind early on that I was never going to pretend to be somebody else. I'm going to take all the blessings and all the curses that come with being me. So if that means I lose out on opportunities because I'm not tap dancing, I'm not a tap dancer. So it couldn't have been for me. If it requires tap dancing, you got the wrong person. Wrong mystic. Sorry. If you trying to pay me off, hey, wrong guy. I don't really operate like that. Yep. The first solution to poverty in the church is to give tithes. And that's how, notice this, they'll guarantee you be cursed, right? Malachi, you are cursed with a curse, for you have robbed me, right? You got the devourer and all this other stuff going on. You are guaranteed a curse. How many people do you know tithe and are wealthy? If tithing worked the way they tell you, everyone who tithe would be wealthy. All of us would be seeing that benefit, and most of us don't. You know who you see benefit from tithing? The preacher that preaches it. I'll leave that alone, but the preacher that preaches it. Debt free is loading. Yeah, like I got to, my car was one of my few debts. I'm trying to leave the country next year. So one of the things we was working on was not having any debts when we left. And I remember telling my wife, I'm like, something I had to learn is don't focus on how it manifests, just make sure that it does. Decide that it will, and it'll show up however it has to show up. A lot of us in many areas of our life get stuck on how we want something to happen versus on that it happens. Think about it like this. Story in the Bible. Elijah he's in the middle of a famine that he caused. He still gets food. How? Birds came and dropped him off food. He didn't care how the food got to him. He cared that it got to him. Some people, and this has been my experience even when it came to doing miracles and healings and stuff like that, is some people would not let me pray for them because they didn't want me to be in their story. They wanted someone else to be in their story, and they get to say, this person prayed for me and it worked. They want to control the how instead of the that. I want to be healed, but I want that person to lay hands on me, and that's how I'll get it. I want this breakthrough, but I want it to happen this way. Well, you might be fighting forever for it to happen that specific way. Focus on that it has to. So I'm not going to pretend that I know all the ins and outs of money. I'm not going to pretend that at all. I didn't get it that way. I got it through mysticism. So for those of you who want to get it, how I got it, this is how you get it. Spend time with the Father, talk to him, go into his realm, get to see what you see. There's all types of stuff there. I'm saying it that way because I want to convince y'all to go meet with the Father and see what's actually in his realm. And then when you see stuff you like, just say thank you, and it just starts popping up. So, I'm gonna do some announcements and give y'all time to ask questions in the comments as it pertains to this. Y'all, please be on topic. So I'm gonna give y'all time to ask questions if y'all have them. While I do these few announcements. So I have 2 books out. Well, I have a few books out, really. Fullness, Guide to Sonship and Mysticism, teaches you how to walk in sonship and how to actually live a supernatural life, how to have a spirituality that actually works. I grew up in a place where things happen, and whatever happened was the will of God. People was dying, God did that. People was broke, God did that. I ain't like that stuff. So I learned how to get results out of my spirituality. Fullness Guide to Sonship and Mysticism is a book that shows you how to get results out of your spirituality, what to do step by step. There's a bunch of testimonies from my own life of it working for me. Everything that I was operating in at the time of writing that book, I teach you how to do it in that book. For those of you interested in Kemeticism, ancient Egyptian spirituality, I have a recent book that just came out called Kemetic Prayers, available on Amazon. It's a book of Hesses, prayers, chants, affirmations, hymns, all that stuff. I have 2 courses coming up. I have a healer course coming up. It's 8 weeks, and then I have a spiritual warfare and deliverance course coming up. The healer course, teaching you, well, it's not for everybody. Let me start off by saying that. Spiritual warfare course, really both of them ain't for everybody, but healer course ain't for everybody. It's for people who tired of being helpless. It's for people who are tired of people dying around them and they can't do nothing about it. I've been successful at healing the sick and all types of other infirmities. Pretty much everything a person can have, I've at least healed it one time. So if you want to learn how to heal the sick, heal other people, heal yourself, or stay healthy, meaning you never have to be sick again, take the class. It's 8 weeks. It's not free, but it's 8 weeks. It's not expensive either. And I teach you everything I know on the topic. Stuff. It's about building a lifestyle that produces results. Next, I have my spiritual warfare and deliverance course, teaching you how to cast out demons, how to be demon immune, recognizing demonic access points. What are demons? What is witchcraft? How to defend against witchcraft, offense and defense as it pertains to spiritual warfare. Teaching all of that stuff. Someone sent me a video earlier of someone trying to cast out a demon, and it told them no. I'm gonna teach y'all how to make sure that stuff don't happen. So, yeah, if you're interested in any of that, go to my website, caveofmystery.org. You can find my courses, my classes, my books, my shop, even my library where I keep all my other teachings at. All right, I got a few questions. So, how did we incorrectly ask Yahweh or Yeshua, assuming people do not know about El? That's how. Ignorance kills. You didn't know that wasn't your dad, so you called on who you thought it was. And who you thought it was had no reason to bless you for a covenant they didn't make. Certain things got lost in translation. People did the best with what they had, but it wasn't enough. Sometimes the best ain't enough. Sometimes you need something that works. So because people thought that Yahweh was Yeshua's dad, when he talks about being born into the family and his father now being our father and him reconciling us to the Father, we think he's talking about Yahweh, and he's not. How would you say we meet the Father? Go into the heavens. Practice the presence. There's a few simple keys I can give. I have a bunch of different teachings. Like I said, my book, my Patreon, I got a bunch of teachings about actually having those types of experiences. In fact, I recently did a step-by-step on Patreon. But simply, I would say, find you somewhere quiet, sit still, and strike up a conversation with him. And call him his names. Any of his actual names is fine. El, Anu, Brahma, the Kemites, they call him Ra. It's the same guy. Right? So call him whatever name is comfortable for you, but it's the same guy. And just start the conversation. You ask questions, you sit and listen, you sit with him and just kind of sit in his presence. Let's see. So if we get money the mystic way, We can have our projects funded quicker. I believe so. What about all the Yahweh songs in the gospel arena? I made that joke early. I made that joke early. They are singing to the God that they thought was Yeshua's father, and it ain't. They're singing to the guy that Yeshua got us freedom from. Worshiping the guy that we were in bondage to. It's an unfortunate truth, but hey, we don't get better if nobody tells the truth. So look, I would like to see songs about El, Anu, right? You know, make some songs about the actual father. Might be hard, but hey. So that was actually my experience with the father, right? And this was before I started studying other cultures like that. I had a conversation with him because the name Yahweh never felt right to me. Theologically, I understood it and why people were doing it, but it never sat right with me. So I struck up a conversation with the father one day, and I asked him, I was like, what's a name that I can call you? What's your name? Right? And he said, An or Anu. I was like, okay, Abba Anu. Because, you know, I deal with the Hebraic, so I was calling him Abba Anu or Father Anu or whatever else I felt like calling him around then. But Anu. I went and did some research around that time, and the name Anu meant the clouds. And that was special to me because my name, Nelson, one of the definitions of it is the son of the clouds. So he very literally told me he was my dad, is how I took it. It wasn't for like 4 years later, 3-4 years later, that I started studying ancient Samaria, ancient Mesopotamia, who are the ancestors of the Hebrews, and found out that the name of their father God was Anu. And I was like, oh, well, the father told me that was his name. So definitely the same guy. So do we have to see the father's riches? I would recommend it. It's a visual experience. The more you can experience it, the more you know to ask for. Because all I'm talking about is money. I promise you there was more stuff there than money. He even have his own set of spirits that operate around him. I did a session on that on Patreon. Y'all go join the Patreon. But yeah. This can be applied if we heard money was coming. If L told you would have X amount in X time, does it apply the same? Even better. Maintain rest, don't self-sabotage, and just wait for it to get here. If the father tell you you got something on the way, it's on the way. So when people say thank you, Father, by default, they're talking to Yahweh. It depends on the person. Some people never had a relationship with Yahweh. Most people do. And a lot of that comes down to sola scriptura. The only God by name in the Bible that's presented in positive light is Yahweh. And Christians, for the most part, are allergic to research. So they'd never come across any of the other stuff that I bumped into, even while I was still studying Christianity, because I was trying to prove it, right? Most Christians are allergic to research. So they would never bump into the Father's name being El, which is in the Bible already. A lot of them aren't even familiar with the term Elohim enough to know that, well, that's the Father's name even in that. Where do you start if you're really new to all of this? My book, Fullness Guide to Sonship and Mysticism, it's a guide. Gives you step-by-step on all of this. The other thing I would recommend, I have a free playlist on YouTube called Sonship and Mysticism Basics. Just start to incorporate that stuff into your life. The YouTube channel is Cave of Mystery. And again, I say, y'all stop putting S's on the end of Cave of Mystery. Also, I have a bunch of step-by-step stuff on my Patreon. But a lot of y'all, I know, some people don't have money. Patreon, my Patreon isn't but $10. But I have some free stuff available on YouTube. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna wrap up. I think I've gotten through everything that I needed to share with y'all on this topic. So yes, I'll say it again. Yep, Cave of Mystery, spelled just like that. So this is what I'll ask y'all for in return, right? I'd ask for a tithe back. 10% of what y'all get from practicing this, just send me a thank you back, a financial thank you back. I don't want all y'all money. Just give me once it starts manifesting. You don't have to send me nothing to activate this. You just got to practice it. Right? When you start seeing manifestations of this, send me 10% just to say thank you. That's a good deal, right? Which means if nothing works, you're not out of you no different. You didn't spend a bunch of money and then it don't work. No. Send me a thank you when it worked. Yeah, like Kiana say, remember your boy. Remember me. So again, y'all, all the places you can connect with me on caveofmystery.org. You can find my teachings, my trainings, my catalog, my classes, my books, my shop, all of that stuff. So, yeah. So, I'll end with this. Yahweh is not your dad. El is. Anu is. Spend time with your actual father. He the one that got all the money. He's the one that gave you your identity. He's the one who gave you your purpose. He's the one that's going to fund that project. So I love y'all. Thank y'all. Until next time. Later.